Hello and welcome. My name is Samuel Ray, also known as the Scuff Doctor, and I've been out of the game for a bit in terms of YouTube uploads, but I've kind of hit a stagnating point in my growth and in my motivation and passion for content creation, so I figured I would reinvigorate it by leaning a little heavier into my current fixation, which is motorsport. I'm someone who really enjoys driving in real life. I don't get to do it enough anymore. A previous job of mine had me driving long distances occasionally, and I really enjoyed those drives. So I recently discovered motorsport and, kind of got back into the racing games that I used to enjoy a lot when I was younger. So it just hits right at this age of mine. And what I've discovered is that I really love rally racing most. This game is Art of Rally. It's a really fun, minimalistic art style, but surprisingly challenging and deep, and pretty realistic in terms of its physics, but still fun as a game. And it's an indie game, quite high quality, considering it doesn't have a massive budget. It has a dailies and weeklies system, so what I figured I would do is warm up with the daily, and then go into the weekly, because the daily is a single race, and then the weekly is a set of races as a rally, usually 4 races, and you only get 1 attempt at each, which I find very interesting. So you really have to just do your best to adapt to the car you're given, because everyone races the daily and weekly in the same car, and then your time is put up on the leaderboard. And I am not sure what real-life rally car this one is based on, and clearly I was rusty after not having played this for a couple weeks, and I really went off track there. Again, I think it's a rear-wheel drive car, and that's not particularly my specialty. In real life, I grew up driving front-wheel drive cars, and in terms of like rally racing games and simulators, I favor all-wheel drive. The superior grip and overall acceleration and traction that they offer is just much more my speed. So in the career mode, I haven't yet gotten to the all-wheel drive cars yet, but occasionally I'll get one in the daily or the weekly. And you don't get to choose, and you don't get to see what car you're racing beforehand. Here you can see I started to warm up a little bit to it. Got some air, managed to keep control in some of those corners. Early on it was pretty rough, and that was still kind of a rough turn. There is a damage system in this game though, so you can actually take a pretty hard hit, damage your axle, and then the car actually kind of pulls to the side. I find that real interesting because I've only had that happen in some more simulatory ones that I've played. So that was it for the daily, and I actually did a lot better than I expected. As you can see here, I went back into the menu afterwards, and I got 23rd on the daily's leaderboard. Not too bad if I do say so myself, especially for my first time doing a recorded daily. I think I've only raced one daily before, and it was back when I streamed the game a few weeks ago. So now we're going to move on to the weekly. And this is a sequence of 4 races with a repair portion in the middle. And you have a limited amount of repair time per the rules of rally. So you kind of want to make sure you're not driving so hard that you break the car, but you don't want to go so light that you put up a poor time. Now, this first car is a jet black, I believe it is a Subaru Impreza WRX STI. The bottom of this is max attack, so I'm pretty sure that's a Colin McRae thing. So yeah, all-wheel drive, pretty high power. You could tell I definitely haven't driven this one yet in the game, and I struggled pretty hard with maintaining control. it takes a bit for me to adjust to it. Uh, those backfire every time you release the throttle, though. It's crazy. Yeah, see, I'm so wobbly here. I had so much trouble keeping control for a bit. But all-wheel drive also, they don't lose as much speed when you're going off track. So if you're in the grass, you're actually able to maintain some measure of momentum. Still not as much as if you can stay on the proper course, but you're not as punished for making a small mistake. However, the trade-off being the thing's much harder to control. Now here is a very wide open turn. I was able to keep a pretty good speed going there. And some real good air there as the reward. Another detail I like about this game is when you're hitting the brakes, you can actually see the brake discs heating up. It's a nice tiny little detail you don't see much in racing games. I went way too wide there. Funny little detail too is all these little block people takes inspiration from the Group B races or rally in the history, and they were when manufacturers pushed cars to their absolute limits because there was much less in the way of safety regulations. So the spectators crowded certain parts of the track to try and get as close of a look at the races as they could. And I managed to get kind of beached on my side there. I had to reset the car and eat the 5-second penalty. Which, in a rally, every second really counts, especially when you're going up against everyone else's times that attempted it. Real cumbersome turnaround there, but I managed to get it once I backed up onto the road. Man, trying to control that thing under full throttle was so difficult. And I just flipped it almost for no reason. Literally, just taking the corner a little too sharply. And the thing went to tip over. And there it goes again. But this time, I got a full, aileron over barrel. So, yeah, wasn't such a great run. But, if I do remember correctly, I did manage to kind of get back in the groove a little bit. I may have made one more big mistake on this first track. Got some good air there, and managed to maintain a pretty solid pace up here to the finish. Almost lost control after that jump. Like I said earlier, if you've got... Oh no, never mind. I flipped it out there too. That's right, I went headfirst into that hay barrel. This thing has kick. You have to try real hard to control it. And I think I realized later that part of the trick is not going full throttle unless you're on a straight. You really have to make use of the analog triggers on your controller. Kind of like how in real life driving, you don't always want to push the pedal down and floor it all the time. In terms of real life racing, that is. Fine throttle control is actually pretty crucial. And yeah, I really spun into the finish there. Yeah, that was an awkward first race. Now for stage 2, I remember it being a decent bit better of an attempt. Yeah, because I went a little easier on the throttle. At that point, I decided I wanted to experiment with a different method of throttle control. So I would actually go half throttle at certain points. If I didn't see a long stretch of straight or loose turns. I decided to go it a little easier and be a little more surgical with my cuts as well. And you can see by how much more controlled I am in these turns. Not going flat out all the time actually made it easier to control. except there. But I think I started trying to brake a little earlier and even coast into some more turns rather than just going flat out and then braking and then flat out and braking. You can tell from the sound of the engine alone that I wasn't going flat out nearly as much as in the first race. And the trade-off is you can see so much more control. A soft tap against the tree there. Fortunately, it didn't really slow me down too much, although I slowed myself down quite a bit because, interestingly enough, at lower speeds, this thing really wants to just kind of go back and forth and back and forth. But once you get your momentum going and those tires bite into the gravel, and you make good use of throttle control, this baby can handle really well. Now there I made a mistake and went too far off track. And if you cut a corner too tightly, you're going to eat the 5-second penalty, which I was a little frustrated about in that one because I had no need to try and cut that tight. But I did. So I don't make that mistake again in this run. I'm still trying to feather that throttle a little bit, going more at like half to 80% throttle in a lot of parts. And you can tell by, well, you could tell for a while by how much better I was taking those winding turns, but then I got a little too ahead of myself, maintaining a little too much momentum. Now it's time for repairs. And you can see, I actually hadn't taken any damage, so all I had to do was clean up the car. So, if I remember correctly, I tried to, by this track, I tried to keep myself a little more under control with the throttle. Taking the turns a little more precisely. I figure it's better to keep control of the car and be more efficient on the turns at a lower speed than to try and go top speed from turn to turn and have to hit the brakes even harder. And you can see it's starting to pay off because I haven't gone off road nearly as much. Taking these turns much better. Had to be mindful of that jump because I saw a turn right after it, so I decided to go easy on it. And cut that turn perfectly right up against those hay bales. See, also using a more gradual accelerating method, gradually increasing the throttle when accelerating, because I found that if you go from 0 to 100% throttle, the car becomes really difficult to maintain control over. Yeah, see, I'm maintaining a much better pace here. Keeping it on road much more. Taking the winding roads with a coasting speed through the curves. Not having to slam on the brakes nearly as much. I just felt so much more in control on this race. Kind of crazy that more than half of the rally had to go by before I gained that level of control, but, you know, of course I say that and then I lose control there, but regardless, it's all about adapting to the car you're given without any forewarning of what you're going to be getting. So I do think that the more you play it, the more you gain experience using all the different cars, which I will get as I play through the career mode more, and unlock all the cars. Except there, it tried to flip over on its own, and for no reason other than I just took the turn a little too sharply. I find that really interesting. But what I was saying was gaining more experience with the cars, you're going to have an easier time knowing the nuances of them all just by looking at them and I'm getting a feel for it, so I do plan on sticking with this game a bit more going forward because, simply put, I just really enjoy it. I would love to play this on my own time more if it was decent on Switch, but the Switch does not have analog triggers, and that makes it pretty much impossible to manage. Like, I really can't imagine trying to play this on Switch where your only throttle options are 0 and 100% all the time. Like, you need, from what I've seen so far playing this, you need the ability to utilize analog triggers. So here we are on stage 4. Fine-tune the graphics a little bit, try and improve the frame rate, but also one thing I really don't like is having pop-in of environmental elements close up to me. So I wanted to, even if I had to lower the graphical fidelity, really maximize the draw distance to reduce pop-in for vegetation and shadows and environmental elements. And I think I succeeded in that and found a good set of settings for my PC hardware. Despite this being such a low poly type minimalistic art style game, it's quite demanding. Surprisingly so, just because of how much of the environment is rendered at all times. So on this one, I do recall I tried to push a little harder. I wanted to increase my speed, but try to maintain at least a semblance of the control that I had practiced in the previous 2 stages. It was kind of interesting to see the fruits of those attempts. So far in this rally, I was able to maintain more control. A hiccup here or there, like so, but, you know, nothing too terribly bad. I saw the thing start going a little sideways, so I wanted to ease up off the throttle there to prevent myself from tipping over, because this car loves to tip over for some reason. And even though I tried not to, it still happened, and I had to recover the car, eating the 5-second penalty. Apparently you really gotta be careful about cornering a little too sharply at too high of a speed, because this car will sometimes tip if it's unsettled by a bit of uneven ground. And that is one downside to the art style and the camera angle. It's hard to tell elevation in the ground since you're overhead. It's hard to tell when the ground's going up and down or when it's uneven, like you would when the car's camera is directly behind it. So, but if you have a lower camera, then you can't see as much of the road ahead, and you would then need some callouts from a co-driver. Now that course was so much shorter than what came before, but yeah, I think it went relatively well. So we take a look at what position I got in the weekly, and that would be 157th, better than 70% of the people who tried. I do like how it shows you a percentage that you perform better than. It kind of reminds me of the global smash power system from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Smash Bros. For Wii U, where it tells you how many players you're higher ranked than. But in this case, I like how it gives you a percentage. And then, as you can see, for the daily on Sunday, I did better than 85%, being in 25th. So yeah, I want to kind of keep this up and attempt to try playing more of these dailies and weeklies and record them. So let me know if you enjoyed this. Have you played Art of Rally before? If you have, let me know what your favorite track or your favorite car Personally, I'm very partial to the Subaru Impreza WRX STI. That's just, I love that car. It's so cool, especially the one with the Colin McRae inspired one, which is I think a Group A car in this game. I haven't unlocked it yet, so we'll have to see. But yeah, if you enjoy this type of content, let me know in the comments, or you can just let me know by hitting the like button and subscribing to get more of that, because I'm trying to kind of figure out what I want to do on this channel going forward. So I'm probably going to lean more into racing and motorsport type of content. So, all right, this has been Dr. Sam, and I will see you in the next upload. Have a good one. Later.